Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the classroom to look at the very blueprint of education itself, the deliberate and often debated architecture that decides what every single student learns. So let's start with a really big question. This was posed way back in 1861, and honestly, it's still the absolute cornerstone of any conversation about education. What knowledge is of most worth? Answering this? Well, that's the first, most fundamental step in designing any curriculum. To really get how these huge decisions are made, you have to stop thinking of a curriculum as just a list of subjects. Instead, I want you to picture it as a meticulously designed building, an architectural plan for learning. All right, so just like any good architect, before we can even think about building, we need to understand our materials. We've got to define our terms, starting with the very foundation, the curriculum itself. A curriculum isn't just the what we teach, it's the entire plan. It's the grand design that outlines the intentions, the content, the experiences students will have, and even how we measure success. It really is the complete set of blueprints for a student's entire educational journey. Now, this is where it gets really interesting when we break down what content actually is. It's not just a pile of facts. Think of it as the specific bricks and mortar of our building, a careful combination of knowledge, the practical skills to use that knowledge, and the guiding values a society thinks are important. Okay, so you've got your blueprint. The architect's next huge job is choosing the absolute best materials. And in education, this selection process is deliberate, it's critical, and as you're about to see, it is often the source of some pretty intense debate. So how do you decide what makes the cut? This is where things get complicated. It's a negotiation, really. It's a political process where different groups argue for what they believe is most important. But it's not totally random. There is a framework that guides these incredibly important decisions. To filter the near infinite amount of stuff out there, curriculum planners use a framework just like this one. They ask a series of questions. Is this content significant? Is it a load-bearing wall for the subject? Is the information valid and accurate? Will it help students navigate the world and be good members of society? Is it actually useful later in life? Can students, given their cognitive development, even learn this stuff? And, this one's crucial. Is it actually interesting enough to capture their attention? Now, once you've picked out all your materials, you can't just dump them on the construction site. They have to be organized into a coherent structure. And this is where we get into what's called the architectonics of curriculum. Architectonics. It's a great word, right? It's basically the art and science of structuring all that content you've selected. You can think of it as the master plan that makes sure everything fits together logically, and it's guided by two key principles, scope and sequence. And this distinction is so important. Scope is the horizontal dimension. Think of it like the floor plan for one grade level. It's about how wide and deep you go. Sequence is the vertical dimension. It's the order you build in, making sure the foundation you lay in grade 3 can support the walls you're going to build in grade 4. And this table illustrates it perfectly. This is a simplified scope and sequence chart. You can see how some subjects, like English, are a high priority pretty much the whole way through. But look at reading. It gets a ton of emphasis early on, then it tapers off as those skills are mastered. That shift makes room for other subjects, like science and computer studies, to ramp up as students get older. It's literally a master plan for a decade of learning. But here's the massive challenge that every architect and every curriculum designer runs into. You can't just keep adding new rooms to the building forever. The plot of land you're building on, it's a fixed size. And here is the bottom line, folks. The school day, the school week, and the school year are all finite. The curriculum is not a limitless reservoir. You simply cannot keep adding new things without eventually having to take something else away. And believe me, the pressure to add more is relentless. Society constantly demands that schools teach more and more, from career education and financial literacy to drug education and multicultural understanding. These are all important, no doubt, but they put immense pressure on an already full building. This creates a constant and very political tug of war. Every new subject that gets added means something else might have to be reduced or removed. It forces everyone right back to Herbert Spencer's big question, forcing them to make really difficult choices about what knowledge is truly of most worth for students today. So what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, the main idea is that a curriculum isn't some ancient monument carved in stone. It's a living, breathing structure that is constantly being renovated and redesigned to meet the needs of the time. Let's quickly review the key blueprints. First, a curriculum is an intentional design, not just a random list. Second, content selection is a deliberate and complex process. Third, the structure, the scope and sequence, is the framework that makes learning coherent over time. And finally, the curriculum is finite, which means every choice to add something is also a choice to take something else away. And that brings us right back to the central challenge. In a world where knowledge is growing exponentially and society's needs are changing in the blink of an eye, what should be the unshakable cornerstone of the educational structures we'd build for the future? It really makes you think about your own education and what its architects got right. For those of you who want to dig deeper into the blueprints, you can pause right here to see the primary sources we use to construct this explainer. Thanks so much for watching.